সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, বিরতির পর আপনাদের সবাইকে আবারও আমন্ত্রণ কমিউনিটি ম্যাটার্সে। আজকে আমরা কথা বলছি যুক্তরাজ্যের করোনা ভাইরাসের পরিস্থিতি নিয়ে, এবং এই ব্যাপারে কথা বলার জন্য আমার সাথে উপস্থিত আছেন তিনজন বিশিষ্ট অতিথি। Let me introduce you with my guest, with those of you who have joined after our break. On my first screen, I have Professor Osama Khan. He is a Vice Provost Education of University of Surrey. I have Executive Mayor of Tower Hamlets, Mr. John Biggs, on my second screen, and I have Mr. Yusuf Furqan. He is maths and economics student of London School of Economics and Political Science, and he is also former president of London School of Economics and Political Science, Bangladesh Student Society. Thank you, all three of you, again to join us via video call. We are trying to make best use of technology so that we can still be connected. We know that because of this ongoing pandemic situation, because of this lockdown and social distancing, it is difficult to bring guests to our studio, but it is always good to use the technology so that we can get that message across people for public awareness. Professor Osama Khan, Yusuf Furqan, he highlighted some of the very crucial aspect that how badly they are affected because of this ongoing situation. And you also mentioned about some of the researches that you and your colleagues, you are doing all across different universities across UK, particularly to contribute towards tackling this coronavirus crisis. Some students, they have already raised that concern that because of this ongoing situation, students, they are not getting the sort of services that actually university initially they have advertised, as for example physical lectures, accessing libraries, accessing other facilities. From you, I have learned that university is trying to mitigate all those aspects. However, students are badly affected, and student unions, they have raised that concern that university should reconsider refunding part of tuition fee. What do you think of it?
I think it's a fair argument, to be honest, and yes, our students haven't signed up, like Yusuf here. He really didn't sign up to go to London School of Economics to be taught online or being examined online. However, as I mentioned at an earlier stage, that the most important thing for us as university sector, and just like our honorable mayor is mentioning as well, is the well-being of the community, and to ensure the well-being of the community in the social distancing scenario we are in, we have to ensure that we continue their studies and research and everything using technology and remotely. And for that, we are trying our best in terms of providing library services online. So, for example, if you're a student at University of Surrey, you would be able to literally go into the website, find out a chat box and start a conversation. And the chat could be live. It's not like a chat that you do usually by doing a chat with your, for example, telecommunication company. You can literally talk to someone like what I'm doing with you now in this program. In the same way, health and well-being is available online, all the other supports that's available online. But I think there is no shying away to admit the fact that as a university, we are in an absolute unprecedented scenario. We haven't designed ourselves to be an experience provider online. We are designed to be on campus. So obviously it creates a certain level of challenge, and we completely understand that our student community across Great Britain has been quite puzzled by it. And equally, we are trying our best in terms of addressing those concerns they have. In terms of tuition fee refund, yes, there has been a lot of petition. We know about a particular popular petition that has probably gathered a huge amount of signature, which probably at some point will be discussed in the parliament. It is something that perhaps as a nation we need to take a decision on, because as you know, most of the universities in Britain are publicly funded institutions, and we are regulated by the Office for Students. So if there is a case for the British higher education system to think about financial compensation, that has to be a national decision that we need to come up. It has to be a government policy.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Osama Khan. A further follow-up question: how badly university recruitment will be affected by this situation?
At the moment, there are three scenarios we're talking about. And just to quickly kind of enlighten our community, most of the British universities are thinking of three scenarios, two of which seems to be unlikely. So one scenario is, God forbid, we are in still lockdown situation. September comes in, we are still kind of in social isolation, social distancing. There's travel bans, in which case we won't be able to start academic year on campus. We then have to seriously think of doing online education. If that happens, then as you know that one of the most contributing sector in Britain, the higher education sector, will be really suffering from a huge loss for not having this international student arriving to high quality British education. The other scenario we are talking about, which is also we think unlikely, is everything comes back to normality and COVID virus is somehow being solved, or there is some level of social distancing, but students are safe to be on campus. If that happens, that's actually happy news. That means we can start educating the world. And in between, we are thinking of a scenario where we might have some local students on campus, like, for example, Yusuf here would hopefully be progressing to final year, will go back to LSE and study with social distancing in place. But maybe some of the international students, some of his friends who comes from across the globe, will be studying for some period of time online. Now, whether they're going to make a choice like that, whether they will then demand more refund of the tuition fee, or whether they will actually suspend the year to suspend the education until next year, all these things have a massive financial impact. And we are at the moment planning for all those different scenarios and trying to address the financial impact that may have on the university sector.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. John Biggs, Mr. Mayor, I know we all know that you are Executive Mayor of London Borough of Tower Hamlets, but if I ask you a national situation issue, one of the national issues that I have just asked Professor Osama Khan, that the tuition fee, those who are not getting the sort of service that was advertised initially, should a part of their tuition fee should be refunded? What do you think of it? Before you become mayor, you are also a member of London Assembly. So about all those national issues, I'm sure you do follow as carefully as many of the leaders in the community. What is your stand on that?
Well, I suppose if you can get the same good quality degree by doing it online, then the universities are meant to be a marketplace these days, and that might work. But I think most students would argue that they should have a refund because they're losing a lot of the quality of the experience. But I know that a lot of universities are in a difficult financial place at the moment, so this would require the government to fund a discount on the student fees, and I can't see them doing that in a hurry. But I'm worried that a lot of my constituents, they go to university, they come back, and they have a nice degree at the end of it, but they have £40,000 of debt. And if the quality of their tuition has been damaged by that, then it's reasonable for them to ask for some of their money back. So it's another of these wicked problems which is being thrown up all over the place by this coronavirus. I could be a landlord and I want to get my rent, but the business can't get any income, so it can't pay the rent. But as the landlord, I need the money to pay off my loan. So the whole system.
It's a chain reaction, isn't it? It is like a chain reaction, and everything is so connected to each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's catastrophic. We need it to be over as soon as possible from an economic point of view, but obviously from a human point of view, we need to keep our people safe, and that's the dilemma.
Right. Thank you very much, John. Mr. Yusuf Furqan, do you think a part of tuition fee should be refunded because of this ongoing situation? You and your friends, those who are from UK or from other European countries, or those who are international students, they haven't got the sort of services from the university that was advertised initially because of this pandemic. Do you think part of the tuition fee should be refunded back to them?
Yeah, I do. As in, yeah, definitely. I believe so. Just because of the fact that the degree is supposed to reflect your ability. And at the end of the day, if you're being compared, especially when you use a degree to go for a job and you have a job interview and you're compared to someone who did the exams physically 2-3 years before you, your understanding of your subject may be different, and you want the reflection of your degree to be equivalent to everyone else that's done the exam before you. And so on that basis, the strength of the degree, the value of the degree, might change depending on the way you sat the exam, and especially for a lot of students, especially students from minority backgrounds and low socioeconomic backgrounds, they face issues that go beyond the course or beyond the syllabus.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
They're possibly in smaller houses. They have to think about caring for others, caring for their family. A lot of issues stockpile on top of each other, and then you just have this divide or inequality created by it. So I think definitely it's important to consider it as an option. Of course, like John mentioned, there is an issue. There is a dilemma between whether the government can consider this as an option, especially considering all the expenses they're having to bear in the first place. So yeah, I think it is an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Right. Thank you very much, Yusuf Furkan. John, if I come back to you, there are two universities at your borough, Queen Mary University of London and then London Metropolitan University, and just at the border of your borough there is another university, East London University. So I'm sure many of your constituents, as you mentioned, they're very young people, they go to university. As Furkan mentioned, they do face another challenge, which is going to job market, and their degrees affected by this situation. So is there any special arrangement from council to help the young people in your area? Is there any national any national action plan from the government? Can you see, is there any national action plan from the government to help the young people, those who are going to job market, or even the ethnic minority community, those who are badly affected by that?
And I think the answer is no. I think the real problem we have is, of course, it may be that older people are at more risk from the virus, but the future for younger people is at greater risk in terms of the economy, opportunities for jobs, quality of education, all of those things. And yeah, I will be pressing directly and through my members of parliament for the government to consider this if the lockdown continues for much longer. And so, as I've said before, we really need this lockdown to be ended as soon as it's safe to do that, because people will be robbed. I mean, we haven't spoken about school students, for example, who've been waiting to do their exams, and now their teachers will scribble on a piece of paper what they think the right grade should be, and that's for them. That some could be robbed of opportunity by that as well. It could be a lost year for people. So it is very, very worrying for all of us. I mean, when people say that this is similar, or in some ways worse than the Great Depression that happened in the 1920s in this country and across a lot of the world, they're not kidding. If this goes on for a long time, it will be catastrophic economically, and of course the lower income people in the East End of London will be more likely to suffer than the wealthier people in Surrey, for example.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. We will come back to you how disproportionately this pandemic is actually affecting the community. We have many phone calls online, and many people, they are commenting on our social media, on our NTV Facebook page. Caller, assalamu alaikum, আপনার পরিচয় দিয়ে আপনার প্রশ্নটি করুন।
Assalamu alaikum, bhai sahab. Thank you for your program today. You are inviting three wonderful guests, including the Tower Hamlet Mayor John Biggs. Are you listening, brother?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so may I have asked you a question, because we have a great opportunity, a great chance to asking the question, Mr. John Biggs here as well.
Sure. আপনার নামটি বলেন ভাইয়া, please.
I am a carer from Tower Hamlet. My name is Alam. I had a question to John Biggs here.
John Biggs is listening to you, so bhaiya, apnar please feel free to ask your question.
If a service user cancel their service due to coronavirus worries, then as a carer on 0-hour contract, they should be paid for those hours. Because I was expecting the right answer, because of we are suffering for so many ways, including the money ways. Obviously, we are providing our family. So if you don't have any money, how are we going to provide our family, or including so other stuff. So I'm expecting the right answer, because he's the right person. Maybe I'm going to get this right answer. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
বুঝতে পেরেছি আপনার প্রশ্নটা। I got your point. Thank you so very much. Thank you. John, if you can kindly address his concern.
Okay.
He's
Well,
talking about whether
I
he should
don't know.
pay if the service is cancelled.
I don't know if I have the power to solve that problem, but I think we are all becoming aware with this corona crisis, once again, that people who are in 0 hours contracts are, and the carers are being exploited by the system. Our carer system is doing something on the cheap by giving people 0 hour employment, fairly low wages, when we're asking them to care for vulnerable people. And one of the lessons from the coronavirus crisis is that we need to give a lot more value to our care service. One of the things we've done in Tower Hamlets is we've adopted something called the Ethical Care Charter, which gives a number of guarantees about travel time, about annual leave, about training, and that should make it. And I think we're also offering a minimum hours guarantee, which I think is currently 15 or 16 hours a week, and that's not perfect. But what I want to do is move towards a totally employed carer service, because caring for people in their homes, if you think about your own parents, for example, you would want the person caring for them to be valued and to be properly rewarded for that. And so I'm on your side, brother, but I don't necessarily have the power to solve your problem right now. But if you get the Carers Association to come and talk to me in the town hall, because we have a Carers Association in town, then we can see if we can make some progress on this.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much, John. John, you, before we took that phone call, you mentioned that ethnic minority, they are disproportionately affected by this situation. I do have a further question on that, but I need to take another phone call. Caller, assalamu alaikum, আপনার পরিচয় দিয়ে আপনার প্রশ্নটি করুন। Caller, assalamu alaikum.
Mr. John Biggs, I want to ask him a question about tablets not being collected.
আপনি আরেকটু জোরে একটু যদি একটু লাউডলি বলতেন তাহলে আমরা ঠিকমতো শুনতে পেতাম আপনাকে। If you can kindly speak a little bit louder, please.
I said, my name is Junu, and I wanted to ask a question to Mr. John Biggs regarding Hamlet's refuge collection. We're having problems.
Tower Hamlets key collection, sorry?
Refuge.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much. Thank you. John, how do you address that?
Well, we've just taken over the contract from a private company, and we've had a problem with a number of our bin men being off sick with the coronavirus. So we've had to use some agency staff, but I apologize if we haven't been emptying the service as efficiently as we could have done. Please get in touch with my office or with our switchboard, and we will get someone around to try and sort it out. A lot of parts of the country have suspended things like their green waste and their food waste, but the recycling and the normal bin collection should be happening properly. As I say, some of our refuge staff have been off sick, and so we have struggled in the last couple of weeks, but we are, I'm told we're getting into a better place with that service. So I'm very happy to answer these questions, and I'm getting fewer complaints about it now. We had a strike recently under the old employer as well, and that caused problems. But I think we're recovering from that now in quite a good way.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Professor Osama Khan, you as a senior academic, what is your thought on that aspect, that this pandemic is actually disproportionately affecting the ethnic minority, and how badly it can go, and what the government should do to address it?
This is actually a very important point, because from the history of mankind, as well as from all the economic literature that we have in the history of mankind as well, that whenever there has been any stress point for the whole human civilization through war, to pandemic, or through any kind of economic depression, it has always disproportionately impacted on community from the lower socioeconomic class. And it is still, unfortunately, a fact in Britain that despite of the contribution of the minorities within the economy, we still haven't reached the economic parity that we should aspire towards in Britain. So that means that, as the Honourable Mayor was highlighting, that the East End of London, certain parts of the country, in Midland, in north of England, in Wales, there are communities who are not only minority, but they also are in lower socioeconomic class, which meant that whether you're a young person in the university or whether you are an older person in care or whether you are actually a hardworking individual, perhaps on a zero-hour contract like one of our callers,
so you are Professor
disproportionately
Osama, what you are
impacted by
saying,
the economic situation.
you are saying that these crises not just disproportionately affect the ethnic minority, also at the same time it affects people disproportionately because of their socio-economic circumstances. Is that something you are highlighting?
That's absolutely right. So just to give you an example from the exam scenario that our fellow speaker Yusuf was highlighting, that if we create an exam which is a time-bound exam, just like the way we take in an invigilator situation, and it's a 3-hour long exam, how can you ensure that one of your students is not sharing a house with, say, 7 family members, and they might have only one computer to share between them? So at Surrey, for example, we decided that we will not run a timed exam at all, and the exam will be on a 24-hour window. Right. And I know that many British universities are basically saying you need to ensure that the students who are located in different parts of the world, in rural area, in lower socioeconomic class within Britain, has a fair opportunity to take that exam. In the same way, we also need to think of what's happening with the economic situation. I'm privileged to have my salary still. I'm privileged to be able to order on, I don't know, Waitrose or a posh supermarket to buy my food. But if the lockdown continues, how can we ensure that every community members within our society have the money in their account to buy the food, can basically go and get those food? It's important that we work together as a community.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mayor John Biggs, we know that domestic violence has increased recently, and it has huge impact on East End, London Borough of East End, so all the boroughs in East End of London and also at the same time other parts of the UK. To tackle this issue, what particular steps have been taken from London Borough of Tower Hamlets?
Okay, well, first of all, when the crisis started, we did see an increase, but the increase hasn't continued. So to be clear, in Tower Hamlets at present, and obviously if the crisis goes on for longer, this may change. We predicted there would be a big increase, and there has been an increase, but there hasn't been a prolonged big increase. But obviously, every incident of domestic violence is unacceptable, and so we need to have a service to try to deal with it and protect people who are victims of domestic violence, which is both the victim, adult, but also children are traumatized by it. And so we have quite a comprehensive service. We have a number of staff. We have domestic violence service. We also have emergency housing and refuges for people who are victims of domestic violence. We also have counselling services. They're never enough. I'm told that we have more resource for that in Tower Hamlets than many other boroughs do. And what we're finding more generally is that there is an increase in domestic incidents coming to our attention. And we're always torn between wondering whether this is A, because people are getting more violent relationships, or B, because people are less willing to put up with abusive relationships and are now coming forward and saying enough is enough. I want someone else to try and deal with my problem. And we think it's more the second situation. But obviously at a time of crisis, when people are stuck together, when people are angry and upset, people may have lost their jobs, they may have teenage kids who are always a bit of a challenge, then tempers may get frayed and there will always be problems. So far, it hasn't been as big a problem as we expected it might be, but we are there to try to help people. And what we want is for the whole community to be open about issues of what is acceptable in terms of behaviour, and we think that's something that's becoming a lot more common and prevalent. Because what happens with domestic violence, it tends to pass through generations as well. So we often forget about the kids and how they're affected by abusive relationships.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. Yusuf Furqan, former president of Bangladesh Student Society of London School of Economics and Political Science. What would be your recommendation to your friends and your classmates or students, those who are actually affected by this situation, what they can do to stay at home, but also at the same time, they can use their time very efficiently so that they can learn new things, they can learn new skill. What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of conversation about this, especially given people are realizing that they're never going to have as much free time that they have right now. But I think at the same time, that's created a lot of pressure on some people as well. So I'd say, firstly, it's important to realize you don't have to get through this having come out a new person. I think it's really important to pin down the fact that coming out from the lockdown situation just as well off as you were, or just as focused as you were before you got in, that's the key. Because a lot of the times you realize the demotivation and the frustration leads people to have a sort of their lifestyle changes. You're in a situation where the world around you has changed, and everyone's in a different routine. The routines are quite unhealthy. Waking up at like 4 or 5 p.m., sleeping at 5 a.m. A lot of students are facing this issue, but I think it's really important is to realize that when the lockdown ends, we do have to go back to what. Right. Eventually, we will have to go back to what was the norm.
Thank you very much. Thank you. John Biggs, Mr. Mayor of Tower Hamlets, we know that the holy month of Ramadan is coming very soon. What would be your message for your constituents?
My message is, well, I'm not of a Muslim faith, but a very high number of my constituents are, and I work very closely with my mosques and community in East London. And obviously, the holy month of Ramadan is a massively important time for refreshing one's soul and.
John, very quickly, we are running out of time. Very quickly, please.
Right. The problem we have is that this would be a Ramadan like we've never seen before. How can you celebrate with people when you can't be with them? And my message is be safe and find ways to express and celebrate your faith while keeping you and your family safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us today via video call. And we wish you a very pleasant time, and also the same time, stay safe wherever you are. সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, আজকে কমিউনিটি ম্যাটার্সে আমরা কথা বলছিলাম যুক্তরাজ্যের করোনা ভাইরাস সিচুয়েশন নিয়ে, এবং তিনজন এক্সপার্ট আমাদের সাথে এই ব্যাপারে কথা বলার জন্য জয়েন করেছিলেন। আপনারা যে যেখানে থাকেন না কেন, সুস্থ থাকুন, ভালো থাকুন। আপনাদের সাথে আবারও দেখা হবে, এবং রমজান মাসের অ্যাডভান্স শুভেচ্ছা আপনাদের সবাইকে। বাট স্টে সেফ। আপনারা গভর্নমেন্টের লকডাউন বা আরও যেসব নিয়মকানুন আছে সেগুলো মেনে চলার চেষ্টা করুন। থ্যাংক ইউ অ্যান্ড টেক কেয়ার।